Hi guys, this is Miles here with another short video on how to use the 3D printing in the lab and how to use the MakerBot software. So that's what this video is mainly going to focus on, is the MakerBot software. The best way to get the MakerBot software is to go online and search in Google MakerBot software. And it should be about the first link probably. Make sure it says makerbot.com so you're not getting a virus from a random website. And you'll go here and it will say the all new MakerBot print, download version 2.6. And you'll download it to your computer, and once all is done it will look something like this. Now this is a much newer version. I didn't even find out about this until yesterday when I looked it up. But it's basically the same controls as the other version. It has some different settings, but not that much. There is a computer in the lab for two MakerBot Replicator 2 printers that already has the software on it, and you can print directly from there. But you can only really use those printers if you're in the club empowered. So if you're not and you're part of GRIP, you'll need to download this onto your own computer when you go to print stuff. So what you do is after you download it from the internet and you get something like this, in the last video I showed you how to create an STL file from a SolidWorks file. So what you're going to do is you're going to insert that STL into this 3D space kind of looking thing. So what you're going to do is go up to File, you're going to say Insert File, and you're going to find the STL file that you had. STL, I guess the long name is stereolithography. So you're going to pick that file, you're going to double click it, and the software is going to automatically enter it into this space. As far as controls go within this space, if you want to pan the view, the scroll button on your mouse, if you have one, you press the scroll button down, and this allows you to move. If you want to zoom in and out, you use the scroll button. If you want to, I guess, move the object, use the left click button and press on the object, and it can move it around the base of the software. And if you want to rotate it, you right click and then kind of just move your mouse around and it will rotate it. So what I'm going to do is go over some of these controls. Let's see here. See if I can get rid of this thing. Okay, so the main controls are over here. The tabs over here: Explore MakerBot.com, Explore Thingiverse, Explore MakerBot Store, Learning and Support. You don't really have to use these. This is kind of cool though. You can press on Explore Thingiverse and it will pop up the website Thingiverse, which has a bunch of STLs on it, and you can find STLs on there to then put in the software. So going from these right tabs, model view is active. I can't really figure out what difference that is compared to something like that. So as long as that says model view is active, you're perfectly fine. This button I will go over after, but I pressed it by accident, so I'll just wait for that to finish. Oh, I can cancel it. Okay. Select an object to view and adjust model information. So I'm selecting this model, and I can change, I guess, the measurements from millimeters to inches, however I want. So if I move it to inches, it makes it extremely big. This is why we advise you guys on the STL to make it in millimeters and not inches. Let's see. Okay, so that's that tab. The print settings tab I'm going to do last. The arrange tab is more, I haven't even used this yet, but it's, I'm guessing, more for advanced users. If you're printing multiple objects at the same time, it can automatically arrange the objects in a way that it will all fit. Here, select currently visible objects to adjust its orientation. So what this means is you can rotate your object. So you select your object and you can rotate it in the x-axis. Remember, the axes are over here. So you can rotate in the x-axis negative 90 degrees, and if you want particular measurements, you can enter them here. If you want, let's say 30 degrees, you can do that. But we're just going to go with 0 and get it back to 90. That's stuck. Let's see if I can get this back. All right. So you can rotate it with this and rotate the object in different fashions. Another thing you can do is a new tool that wasn't on the last version of MakerBot called Place Face on Build Plate. So if you press this and you rotate to whatever face you want to be on this build plate, you can press that face, I guess, and you can select that as your bottom face, and it will automatically place it onto the build plate. That's a really cool feature, and they didn't really have that in the last version. Let's see what else. So that's for rotating your object. Now, I didn't explain this before, but this space right here is actually the space that the object will be printed on the 3D printer. So if we look up on here, let's see if they have any actual ones. So MakerBot 3D printer. So the build plate is going to be basically this area right here. So this is where the object's actually going to be 3D printed on. And this plate will move up and down, and this will move left and right and back and forth to print your object up. So over here where it says Replicator 5th generation, if your computer, I guess, is wirelessly connected to a printer, you can do it that way, or you can just export the file, which a lot of you are going to have to do. So what you're going to do is you're going to press Add Printer here, and you're going to press Add an Unconnected Printer, and there's tons of different MakerBot printers available. The ones for grip are going to be the Replicator 5th generations for the moment. Those are on kind of the back side of the lab. More towards the front of the lab are the Replicator 2s. Those are mainly for the Club Empowered. So the Replicator 5th generation is what you're going to pick. And if you notice, my build plate actually changes size when I'm changing the printer. So keep that in mind. So I'm connected to the Replicator 5th generation now, and it's showing me the volume that I have to build with. So another cool thing is scale, which they have as an option here. That allows you to scale the object in different fashions. So I can increase this by 200%, and it'll make my object a lot bigger. I can increase it by 100%, and it will go back to normal size. So those are basically the options that you have to work with. And let's see what else. Estimate print. Okay, so this is another cool thing, but that's the last thing I want to get to. So before I get to that, up here, when these buttons here, new project, open project, save project as, those buttons are mainly going to be if you want to save how your items are placed in the MakerBot software. So you can't save this object or this project onto your USB and then put it on the printer via USB, which you're going to have to do, and I'll show in the next video. You're going to have to export it as a certain file type. So these are really if you wanted to save the configuration in the MakerBot software, so that when you click that file afterwards, you're opening it back up on the MakerBot software. Edit. Yeah, the rest is pretty self-explanatory. So this button here, Estimates and Print Preview, if you press that button, what it's doing is it's going to kind of give you a preview of how your object's going to print out. So right now, I'm not using any support material, which I will explain, but it's going to show me how my actual object is going to print. So you'll notice that it's now giving me basically a 3D model of how my object is printing, and I can actually go on the left here layer by layer as far as how it's going to print. So if I show up to layer, it's going to show me how the object actually prints. Down here, that orange material is called a raft. It's basically a material that's printed on the printer base first to allow your object not to slip on the printer base. And then you'll notice how it just keeps printing up. You'll notice here that it has these cross hatches. This has to do with a property called infill, which I'll show you. And it's basically the density of the object. It goes with how much support material you actually want to put inside of your object that you're printing. So if you have an infill density of, let's say, 100%, this would all be filled. If you have it 50%, it will half be filled. So it really affects the amount of filament you're using, which filament is somewhat not super expensive, but you don't want to be wasting filament, so you don't want to put 100% density, because A, it's going to make your object a lot heavier, and you're going to use a lot more filament. So you kind of want a medium ground of like not super much filament, but you also don't want your object to be super light or super heavy. So this kind of shows how you are moving up. The moves here just show you how it's actually moving per layer, how it's going to be building each layer up. And you can control different ways to see this. You can make that disappear in the support material, which is called the raft. So you can do this kind of stuff, and it will show you how each layer is printed up. Let's see. Oh, another cool object or feature in the new version is it tells you how much material you're going to use from a normal spool and the weight of it, and it will give you a time estimate as far as how long it will take to print. This was actually on the last version, but it didn't show you like the time of day that it would finish printing. So that's that. Now, an important thing to think about is this thing called support material. So you'll notice that when I press this, that the way I orientated my object was that the object, let's see here, the object was basically printed with its biggest face down, and it kind of went up from there. So the thing is that you can put objects on the printer in different orientations. This was one. A second one, which I'll show you right now, uses support material. So if I take my object and I rotate it, let's say 90 degrees, so that the smaller face is on the bottom and this bigger face is on top. The thing is, when it's printing it, is that the 3D printer can't print this ledge here without something underneath. It can't print in like mid-air. So it creates this thing called support material, which in the end you're going to have to scrape out yourself and break apart. And it's somewhat annoying, so you don't really want to deal with it, and it also kind of makes the surface not look super clean and smooth. But sometimes it's unavoidable. So in this, if I put my object in this orientation, when I go to the print preview tab, it will now show me how it looks with all this support material. So let's see here. Feel free to speed me up or slow me down. If it's loading, I don't care. Alright. So it's basically done loading, and now you'll see this raft on the bottom again. You don't have to print with this thing called a raft, but it helps your object from not slipping. And we're going to show you the support material now. So let's see if it shows it. Hold on 1 second. Oh, there we go, support. Sorry, I guess I gotta load it again. Fast forward me. So almost done. Okay. Hopefully it works this time with the support material. Awesome. Okay, so now you'll notice these orange walls here. And what these orange walls are is support material. So starting from the bottom, you have the raft that's printed. And then you have your bottom, or I guess your top face, but you flipped it upside down, of the wheel hub that I printed here. And you'll notice that it has this orange kind of crosshatch area around it that's printing now. So what this crosshatch area, or this kind of area is doing, is it's creating support so that when I'm building up in this area up here, it has something to build off on. So it's going to go up, and then right about, let's see, right about there is when the program makes basically its first layer on top of that support material. Without the support material, this layer would not be able to be printed because it can't print over like an overhang like that in 3D space. Afterwards, you would break this off and you'd be able to take your object off of the print plate. So that's the support material. The last thing I'm going to do in this video is show you the different settings for printing. And then I'm going to show you how to actually export the object so you can print it on the 3D printer. So under print settings, if you go to extruder type is basically, you don't have to worry about this on the replicator 2s. So if you're in empowered, you don't really have to worry about this. But if you're in grip, you do. Most times it's going to be the Smart Extruder Plus. It really has, and I'll show you in the next video the difference between a Smart Extruder Plus and a Smart Extruder. They're basically just two extruder. An extruder is basically a thing that heats up the filament, which is the actual plastic that you're 3D printing. And the filament comes in a spool, and this kind of like goes through the extruder, and the extruder heats it up and then prints it out. So this is just two different extruder types. It matters when you're printing it out, but they basically look the same or similar in real life, and I'll show that in the next video. Tough PLA I wouldn't worry about because we don't have that. Support is kind of what I just explained, with the support material that holds this object up. Balance, this is new in this version. I didn't see this in the old version, but I guess it gives you 3 different options for printing. If you want to do a balance of infill, high surface quality, quick print time, if you want to print really fast and not have, so it's basically really prototype-ish. It won't be super functional, but it's going to be really light and print faster. So these are different options here that you can use. Add a custom setting. So if we go to printer, adjust the speed of gantry, I wouldn't worry about this one. What's quick settings? Oh, quick settings, that's a good one. Alright, so number of shells. It's kind of self-explanatory what these are. You can read them here. I don't have to read off to you. Rafts are those things on the bottom that I was explaining. Infill density is the density of the object, so how dense is it going to be. And you notice that if I click on these, it will then give me options on my print settings to put these up. So the infill density, I think I usually use 20%. And I will get back on the next video. Layer height 0.2 is fine. 2 shells recommended is fine. For me, functional printing, 20% is usually the best. So let's see if I can get it up to 20. As far as other custom settings, I'm actually going to check in the old version of MakerBot, of the MakerBot software, and see what I have for the settings, but I'm pretty sure it's 20%. So this will pull up the old version. Let's see. Settings. This is 0. Let's see if I can do the same thing on this. So, don't know why I deleted it. I'm pretty sure I had it at 20% before. So that should be fine. So infill density is 20%, layer height, number of shells. So add a custom setting. It just kind of goes through the rest of the settings. The filament diameter. These are all different extra settings that you can put. You can read about these. I don't have to necessarily explain them. So the last step that you're going to do after you have your model on the base, and once you do it once or twice, it's really easy and it'll be pretty fast, is you're going to go to export, and you're going to have a USB inserted into your computer. So you're going to press export, and it's going to export this file into a format that the 3D printers can actually read. So I don't have a USB in my computer right now. I'll insert one later to show you in the next video. But you're basically going to press on your USB, and let's say this folder was my USB. I would save it as, let's say, wheel hub print. Any file name is fine. And press save. And it will now export this file into a format that the printer can read. You'll notice when I press export that it says MakerBot here. If you're exporting on a Replicator 5th generation, it will say MakerBot. If you're exporting on a Replicator 2, it will say .x3g, which isn't appearing here, but that's basically the ending that it will have. It will have .x3g, and for MakerBot, it will have MakerBot file type. So that's basically it for this video as far as the MakerBot software. And the next video I'll show you how to actually put it on the 3D printer to print up. Hope you fast forwarded me because I think I talked a little slow during this lecture, but if I didn't, yep, I guess that's it. Alright, I'll catch you in the next video.